Next, I want to talk about the conversation that Captain Solo had with the black female through email, I guess it was, or maybe it was through PM. I just feel the need to make this disclaimer. I like this person, I'm subscribed to their channel, and I watch their videos. Sometimes I feel nervous about addressing people because I'm afraid they're going to see it as an attack. But hey, if we can't have civil discussions with each other, what's the point of this black dialogue anyway? But I just want people to know that what you're talking about is a separate issue from what my video was trying to address. My video was meant to address an issue between a man and a woman, and not even necessarily a black man and a black woman. I wasn't setting out to address how to improve the black community at large or how to help a brother out. It was just to help black women who have a problem with submitting to a man just because he's a man. I was offering up some other reasons to submit other than his gender. You were saying something like, and I'm getting this secondhand from Captain Solo, so if you didn't say this then I apologize. But you were saying if we go by money to be qualified for submission, then that's going to exclude a lot of black men. Well, I don't think it will exclude nearly as many black men as you're thinking. Well, first of all, every race of man, including black men, makes more than their female racial counterpart. And in fact, there was a story that came out a few weeks ago that said that black women's net worth was $5. Black men's net worth was like in the thousands, like 1,500 or something like that. So financially speaking, black women are the ones who need the help from black men, not the other way around. I used to work as a floor tech at a job where they housed boys who had committed felonies. On that job, they made no bones about how they were paying the males more. So if one of those black men who was working on that job decided to marry or go out with one of the females on that job, then he would qualify for submission under what I was talking about. But again, my video was to address women who have a hard time submitting, not to create a hard, fast rule for everybody to follow. If you, and I don't mean you, I mean hypothetical you, if you don't have a problem submitting to a man simply because he's a man, or if you find a man who doesn't care about submission, then my video wasn't meant to address you. You should do what works for you. Another thing is that it may be harder for black men in the job market. Like, for example, let's say a white male graduates from college and it takes him 6 months to find a job. And then a black female graduates and it takes her 9 months or maybe a year to find a job. And maybe it takes the black man twice as long as the white man, or maybe even 3 times. But eventually he will find a job. Things may still be uneven, but it's not that bad to where a black man just can't get a job hands down. Eventually he's going to find something. But here's the thing. I spoke of another way to get submission that people seem to be omitting, and I don't know why. I spoke of the woman finding a man who was smarter than her. Submitting to someone who is smarter is a legitimate reason to submit. So let's say we have a black man who graduated from college and he's planning to get a job as a professor, at a university that is. Now, finding a job like that is going to take some time. But because of the profession that he's qualified to go into, which is teaching on a higher level, I know that he has a certain level of intelligence, so I wouldn't have a problem letting him lead because I know eventually he's going to get a job. And another thing is, in that situation, I didn't help him get to where he was. He went to school and got his own degree. He made himself. I'm sticking with him through his hard time, but I did not make him. That I don't have a problem with. But if we're talking about taking a fledgling young black man who hasn't graduated from college or done anything to show he's capable, but he has a dream of starting a company, and then the black woman's going to take her money and invest in his dream, I mean, if that's what you're talking about, that's fine, I'm not knocking it, but that's not the issue I set out to address in my submission video. I was talking about a man and a woman, he's established, she's established, who submits to whom, and for what reasons. Okay, now I want to ask everybody out there, have you seen that movie Soul Food? Yeah? Okay, remember Mekhi Phifer's character, and how he couldn't find a job because he had a conviction? So what did his wife, played by Nia Long, do? She called up some of her friends or her connections and got him a job without telling him. How did he feel when he found out that his wife got him a job? I believe his words were, "I can find my own fucking job." Now, I know that's a movie, but that is not an unrealistic response for a man to have. That's how I think most men would feel if their woman did certain things for them. And by the way, while I'm thinking about it, and this is not necessarily addressing you, I didn't say that a man that makes less money than his woman is a bitch. I gave examples of what I meant when I said bitch men, and none of those examples were simply a man whose woman makes more money than him. I spoke of a man who lives off of a woman and not because he's going through a hard time. I mean, that's just how he makes his living, living off of women. I spoke of men who have no backbone, aka men who follow a woman's life plan. There's a specific personality that goes along with a man like that. And when you see him and his woman interact, it's almost like watching a mother and a son. I spoke of men who are a lot younger than the women they were with, but not all of those are bitch men. But they do tend to be boy toys, and that puts them under the woman's control. Last thing I want to address, and I hope I can fit this in, and by the way, I'm done addressing the black female, I'm addressing a new crowd now. Some people were saying that the way I describe submission sounds like slavery or like the woman has no say. This is also a straw man because I spoke of finding a mate that shares your ideals and beliefs. Long before you head down the aisle, you should ask a prospective mate what they think about certain things. Do you want children? How do you want to raise them? Are you an atheist? Are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? Are you liberal? Are you conservative? Are you frugal? Or do you like to save money? Or do you like to spend money like water? Women might want to ask that man, do you expect a woman who's going to stay in the workforce? Or do you want a woman that's going to stay home with the kids? Or here's a novel question. Do you expect a wife who's going to submit? Or do you not care about gender roles? Hey, if you get with a guy who doesn't care about submission, then submission is a non-issue for the two of you. But this is a discussion that you have before marriage. If a guy wants a submissive wife and you're not into being a submissive woman, then maybe you two shouldn't be together. But this is not rocket science. This is just common sense. If the two of you disagree on the submission issue, why would you get married in the first place? I'm not saying that you and your mate have to agree on exactly everything, but if you agree on most things, or at least the major things, then if the two of you get married, even if the man is given final say, he would generally be making decisions that you would have made anyway. And rarely will you have these vast differences of opinion to the point where the woman's going to feel like she's not being well represented by the choices her husband is making. You should choose a man whose decisions you can trust. And again, this only applies if we're talking about a woman being submissive to a man. If neither party cares about submission, then disregard. I also said if you choose a man who loves you and cares about you, then in the instances when you do have a difference of opinion with your man, that's okay, because since he cares about you, he is still going to take your feelings and opinions into consideration when he makes his decision. If you marry some tyrant asshole who doesn't give a fuck about what you have to say, that's on you. Why would you even get with a man, submission or no submission, if he doesn't care what you have to say? To suggest that I said that you should is a straw man. If you and your man aren't on the same page, then maybe you picked the wrong dude. Now, I said all of this stuff before. I didn't go into this greater detail, but I said it. At 7 minutes 8 seconds into my first submission video, which is called A Real Reason for Women to Submit, No Bullshit, I clearly said, hopefully he's a man who loves and cares about you enough to take your opinion into consideration. Now, I'm not sure how people missed that, but it was clearly said. Also, in my Defining Bitchmen video, which came out before this controversy started, so it's not like I'm making this up now just to cover my ass, I clearly said it before. At 2 minutes and 27 seconds, I clearly talked about finding a man who shares your beliefs. That way, when he makes decisions, even if it's not exactly what you would want every single time, most of the time it will be. Why did people not hear that part? It's because you're trying to move my dart back into your circle. If you disagree with me, then just say you disagree. But don't say I said things I didn't say and omit things that I actually said. Actually, since I have a little bit more time, there's one more thing I want to address. For the people who are saying, well, men and women in a relationship should make decisions 50-50. Well, that's fine when you agree, but what about when you don't? Everything cannot be split down the middle 50-50 all the time. Sometimes it's not going to be possible to compromise. Sometimes the choices will be either left or right. What if the man wants to go left and the woman wants to go right? You can't always compromise and go straight. Somebody's going to have to fold, and that is called submission. Like I said in my other video, submission comes into play when two people don't agree. So for all you 50-50 people out there, what do you do when you don't agree? And I mean don't agree on an issue where you can't compromise. Either you got to go left or right. Isn't someone eventually going to have to come over to the other side? Yeah, well, that's called submission. Or in other words, deferring to the other person. All this sugarcoating that's going on, oh, it's about love. Fine, you're in love. That doesn't mean you automatically agree all the time. What do you do when you don't agree? You can talk about it some more, but if you can't come to a consensus, eventually a decision is going to have to be made. Who makes the final decision?